Piero, hi.
Hi, Diana.
Hi. We're meeting here to talk about Roberto Assagioli's 27th of February birthday.
Well, I never notice even birthdays, but once you get after 130 years, I start noticing. And I think he deserves a happy birthday.
So share with me something you loved about Roberto.
Well, as you well know, we both loved his presence because it was just enough for him to walk into a room and everybody felt in a great shape. And but there was one, just being around him was such an incredible teaching, even in the little things of everyday life. And one thing that I remember was when I was studying with him, and I was very interested in all kinds of things about the transpersonal and cosmic consciousness and far out stuff of that kind. And I had mentioned to him that my mother had come to Florence to see me, and he interrupted my talk on the cosmic consciousness. And he said, you know, it would be really nice if I could meet your mother. And I was astonished because what did my mother had anything to do with that? So I came back from that big talk on the transpersonal, and because he insisted, I got my mother to be there and meet him, and she was very pleased. And he said, of course, all the kind of stuff that moms love to hear about their children. And I could see that he wanted to make a connection, and I could see that there was a teaching, and that teaching has always been there in many other situations, that relationships come first. They come before technique, they come before theories, they come before any far-fetched ideas that you may have about the universe and whatnot. First of all, let's see if we can have a good relationship, you and I and whoever else is concerned.
We would meditate together, and you know, he was deaf or nearly deaf, so he had an egg timer that he would set when we were going to meditate. And I surmised that that was because he went so far away that he needed something to remind him that the meditation was finished. So when you were meditating in silence for quite a long time, suddenly there would be this loud ping going off of the egg timer, and it would shock me out of my shoes. But for Roberto, it was just a gentle ping, and that would bring him right back into the room again and being in relationship again. So that was a fond memory that I thought about when you were speaking.
Well, this reminds me of something about meditation too, because I as you well know, meditating with him was a great moment, and it was sort of part of the everyday ritual. So I often, whoever was there would meditate with him, and I often meditated with him. And as he always did, he would do the Buddhist blessing love to all beings, and compassion to all beings, and joy to all beings, and serenity to all beings. And one day I became curious, and I wanted to see what was happening to him when he would do the blessing. So I opened my eyes and I peeked, and I could see that he was really radiant. I could really see that he was really thinking that radiation of sending, say, joy to all beings. And
Yes.
he had that kind of psychic sensitivity, I think, and he knew that I was watching him. So he opened his eyes, and we met in joy. You know, he looked at me, and I could see that he was in joy, and it was wonderful. And that's where we met.
What I remember about doing the blessing in meditation with him was he said each of the words, compassion, joy. He would kind of say it with enthusiasm, and then serenity. He would be very serene. Just in the sounds of his voice, it was very beautiful. Yeah. One thing that's very precious to me, probably one of my biggest learnings, and it has to do with relationships, as you say, was how Assagioli saw potential in everyone that came into his orbit. And he not only saw potential, he related to your potential. And for the moments that you were with him, you rose to that opportunity to stand in your potential with him. And he did that with, you know, a hippie with a backpack, just as he did that with his students, just as he did that with Lama Govinda. So his role modeling how to relate to people through their potential was one of the greatest gifts he gave me.
Well, this, by association, reminds me another episode that I'll tell you briefly. And that is, once, you know how he wrote his all his notes in little pieces of paper, which now we call them Assagioli, and he had a whole pile, and at some point they fell out of his hand and scattered all over the floor. So I bent over to pick them up, and then I evidently finished before he thought I would finish. I was quick, and I suddenly got up, and I could see that he was looking at me with a very interesting look. At that moment, I felt like I was a little blossoming plant, and he was looking at this the blossoming. I could definitely get that sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it was just my fantasy, but I don't think so. He had this, you know, looking at, oh, he's, you know, something is happening over there.
That's very typical, I think, and I don't think you made it up. That was one of his particular talents, relationships. We both had a very precious time with him, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. And I'm always surprised by how brightly his teaching and my time with him still lives within me. It's almost like it hasn't lost its luster over time, so to speak. I imagine you feel the same.
Yes, definitely. But let's not idolize him. We are sometimes, as he told me once, he said, you know, I'm full of difettacci, as just about as anybody else. Difettacci is an Italian word meaning big faults. It's a little bit of a comical word, but it means I'm just full of faults like anybody.
Yeah, he always said, well, I'm still working on myself. And there was no guru-like energy whatsoever. But you're right, not to idolize. He would hate that.
He would.
Yeah. Yeah. And he also said that the days of the guru are finished, didn't he? He said that the new guru is the soul, the self. So
that's right. Gone are those days.
yeah.
Let us not depend on somebody else, but only on the self.
Right. Good. Well, it's been great to speak with you.
Good.
And hope to talk to you soon.